I'm proud to stand here today as an ally with the leadership of the Legislative Jewish Caucus, with brave students and educators and community members and clergy who are facing a heartbreaking rise in anti-Semitism in California schools. Jewish students across our state, as you have heard, are being harassed, bullied, intimidated, simply because of who they are. No child should ever have to walk into a classroom and wonder if they'll be safe, respected, and free to learn. Jewish students are being bullied and harassed to such an extent that they're having to leave school, as you've heard today. They've had to leave public schools because the conditions and the climate are so bad. They're horrendous. When I served as executive director of Equality California, we worked alongside educators, parents, and my colleagues here today to pass laws to protect LGBTQ+ students from bullying, harassment, and discrimination, and to ensure that every child could learn in a safe and supportive school environment. Jewish students deserve the very same protections. They deserve to feel safe and supported like every other child in California. This should not be a controversial topic. It just shouldn't be. When we have spikes like this that are so horrendous, we need to act, and we can't let more time pass. We've been trying to pass a bill to combat this issue for more than 3 years now. And because it's complicated, we've been asked, and the community's been asked to wait. But it's time that we move forward and we act. This is about our values, the values that we all share: safety, dignity, and equality. We're asking for the same solidarity today that California's Jewish community has extended to other vulnerable communities for decades.
I hope that by sharing my story, I can convince you that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. Not long ago, I was just a regular middle schooler in the Bay Area. I had friends, I even liked school, and life felt normal. But after October 7th, everything changed. People who I thought were my friends turned on me. They called me the Jew. They told me that my family is living on stolen land, and yelled at me that I was a murderer and a terrorist. They even started to chase me, and I had to run away for my own safety, just because I'm Jewish and I speak Hebrew. I didn't deserve any of this. Suddenly, my identity made me a target of harassment and bullying. They hated me just because of my religion and my parents' nationality. At first, I hoped that the school staff would help me, but instead, some teachers and the board made biased comments, distributed political materials during school, and even advocated for student activism to support specific causes, instead of promoting an inclusive and respectful environment.
It's a significant problem. It's real. It's not just in one school district or one part of the state, and it is this problem is directly connected to the spike in hate crimes and violence against Jews nationally. I want to be very, very clear, because there are some people, including some bad faith actors, who keep saying that this is about somehow prohibiting criticism of Israel, that if you talk about anti-Semitism, you are just trying to stop people from criticizing Israel, and that is false. Israel, like any country, is subject to intense criticism. For anyone who follows my social media, you will know that I have been harshly critical of the Israeli government and of what's happening in Gaza, what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza. I was critical of this government before October 7th, and I've been critical since, just like I'm critical of the government of the United States. And so this is about the treatment of Jewish students in our schools and having safe learning environments and non-anti-Semitic learning environments for our Jewish students.
A fellow freshman planned his assault in advance. Using a school assignment, my classmate used school materials and ample class time to cut, glue, and color a full-blown Nazi flag and a puppet of Adolf Hitler, complete with glued-on mustache. Not a single student nor the teacher cared to ask why he was crafting these offensive items, nor did anyone speak up to tell him it was inappropriate to make such hateful and violent symbols. During break, the student pretended to be friendly by patting me on my shoulder. Little did I know that he used that pat to tape the Nazi flag on my back without my knowing. Lots of students saw, and at least one or more students were taking photos from behind. I walk around the school and noticed people snickering, smiling, and laughing, but didn't know why, because no one, and I repeat, no one told me what was taped to my back. By being bystanders and not upstanders, they were complicit in targeting me for being a Jew. When the teacher noticed the Nazi flag on my back and asked me about it, I felt sad, confused, and overwhelmed.
Really, we can boil this down to something very simple. We want our kids to be safe. We want all kids in the state of California to be safe. We want our classrooms to be inclusive and welcoming, not just for Jewish students, but for students of all faiths and backgrounds and races and ethnicities and sexual orientations. We want our classrooms to be places where children can learn. And what our community is experiencing right now, it is something that is terrifying to us. We are watching an explosion of anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. And I can tell you, when I'm home in the San Fernando Valley, when I talk to people, Jewish people across the state, it is the first topic of conversation. We are all feeling it. We are all talking about it. These are the conversations that we are having in our community spaces. And it is very painful to us because for so many of us, our families came to California to escape anti-Semitism. They came to California to escape bigotry. And for many decades, this state has been a safe and welcoming and inclusive place for Jewish people. And I was fortunate to go to public schools in the state of California, and I felt safe, and I felt included, and I felt welcome. And it is really scary for me as a parent to watch what is happening, not just in isolated incidents, but really across the state of California.
My congregation is about to turn 150 years old. The Jewish community has been a part of Oakland since its founding. The cornerstone on our sanctuary was laid the same year that the cornerstone was laid for Oakland City Hall. We are a part of the history of the city, as the Jewish community is a part of the history of California. Yet the result of the surge of anti-Semitic incidents in our public schools is that numerous Jewish families and individuals, including students, teachers, and administrators, are fleeing the Oakland Unified School District, a system that prides itself on its diversity. Too many Jews in Oakland no longer feel safe sending their children to our public schools or teaching in our school district. And if it continues, Jews will start to leave the city and the state in search of educational systems that will protect them and value their contributions. If we hope to maintain the diversity and strength that built and sustains California, we must address the issue of anti-Semitism in our schools.
After so many years of negotiations and unprecedented coalition building, we finally have the chance to make major statewide reform to combat anti-Semitism in our schools. And with anti-Semitism skyrocketing, we can't wait any longer. This is JPAC and the Jewish community's #1 priority. The time to pass AB 715 is now.
And we know, and this is what the research tells us, is that when children feel safe, when they feel supported and affirmed, when classrooms are inclusive and welcoming, that's when they learn. When they have a trusted adult and they're surrounded by trusted adults as well as peers, that's when kids learn. They don't learn in other ways. But it's really not the reality for Jewish students today, and particularly since October 7th, with the Hamas attacks, children have faced and families have faced escalating anti-Semitic rhetoric, discrimination, and even physical violence in our schools. Some of the stories you just heard from Ella and from Lev. And I will say that I sit on the Education Committee, and in my role as joint author of this bill, we've heard firsthand from many, many students across our state and teachers across our state, families across our state, about the intensity of hate that is targeting California's children. And so, what I would say, and I think each of you in this room and anybody watching or reading, I think we would all agree that no child should ever experience hate at school simply for being who they are, simply for wearing a kippah or a Star of David or having a Jewish name or just being Jewish. And that shouldn't happen to any child anywhere, but the reality is that it is happening. So my hope is that today you're going to walk away with a clear understanding of what Jewish families are facing right now today, that they've been facing for years, but that has become so acute that we really have no choice but to act. We cannot and we will not spend another moment tolerating the kinds of stories that you've heard today, tolerating the villainization of Jewish children or of any child in our schools. And I do believe that if we stand together, all of you watching and reading and in this audience and here on stage, that if we stand together, we can make California the beacon of hope that we want it to be, that we all want it to be, where hate is not tolerated.